Hello, I am
Oh
back.
man, you mean bullets can go up? Since when is
I
that a
need to go
thing?
to.
Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Yeah,
That
I have done
volcano's
the episode
18
for
months
today.
sober. You're gonna take him
Also,
off the
haven't
wagon.
uploaded any other.
Well, congratulations, asshole. Now nobody can have the gold. Lucky for Sean Connery, there's a Sinbad movie being filmed just off the coast. It may not have John Philip
Edit
Law, but it
checkbox.
does have Terrence
That's
Stamp.
cool.
What the hell? I told him to kneel before Zod, not lie down. Fix this immediately. It turns out Stamp is the one after the gold, but never mind that. We've got more adventuring to get to.
I've got gadgets unlocked.
You know, I always said those Doug McClure movies needed less monster action and more ballroom dancing. Oh, wait, no, I didn't, because that would be
Still
stupid.
bot, so.
No! You're not a peasant treading grapes, my dear.
This is Professor Artelect, and he'll be our Jar Jar
Oh,
Binks
this
for the
solo.
movie. That is, if somebody doesn't assassinate him first.
Not again, Jeff.
Don't complain, Meg.
Oh, hey, it's Rick from Pod People.
No.
Shouldn't he be busy recording his album right now?
It's not funny, Jeff. You could have killed someone.
Haha, shooting at people is funny. Seriously, though, somebody should take that gun away from him before he kills somebody.
I will personally take
That's
this
a
matter
primo.
to your uncle, Mr. Calderup.
Yes, please. His uncle's played by Peter Cushing, and we desperately need him to bring some dignity to this movie.
$1,300,000.
$1,600,000.
I think Peter Cushing and Terrence Stamp are negotiating how much they need to get paid in order to be in this movie. Actually, they're bidding on the island with the gold from the beginning, although it doesn't really matter who gets it since both of them barely have any scenes after this. Rick, Jeff, is also due to get married, but he doesn't seem to be too happy about it.
I love Meg. Before I get married, I want to show my own worth as a person.
I want to write the song Hear the Engines Roll Now.
I want to travel and see the world.
Most people go to Europe to find themselves, but since this is already a European production, he'll just have to go to Monster Island.
You will have your adventure, Jeff. I can assure you it'll be a trip you will never forget.
Audiences, however, will. But it wouldn't be an adventure without a stuffy British guy going along.
We are totally incompatible.
Gonna go to
He hates my
1000
glasses.
trophies.
He hates my name.
So I unlock a
And
ball.
by the end of the movie,
Yes,
so will
I'll
everyone
recall.
else. Artelect is supposedly the movie's comic relief, but his relief mostly just consists of him screaming like a little girl and tripping over everything
Next
he
is a
sees.
skin.
Oh, look, he fell out of his bunk. Pretty
Bing,
wacky.
power
Now he
8,
burned
bing,
himself. And
power
look,
9.
he just tripped over a bucket. That shouldn't happen. I suppose I shouldn't be too hard on him,
Bing,
though,
Sky
since
Power,
technically he's not the most
Bing,
offensive character in this
and
movie.
eventually Edgar Griff.
Looks like we've got a stowaway, Captain. Honorable Captain. Miserable Chinese begs much pardon. Thank you, Honorable Captain. Thank you.
Sweet Jesus. After that, I think I need to watch something that's a little more respectful towards Asian people.
Oh, I've cactus there. I hate cactuses.
What are you doing on my ship?
Oh, cacti, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, where's that? A Fu Manchu movie? Jeff, however, manages to convince the captain to let the poor stereotype stay on
28
board.
fucking
This
health.
miserable Chinese is very grateful. One day we'll do big favor.
Okay, I swear to God, if you say me love you long time, I am out of here. The crew have the right idea, though. The only way to get through this thing is to hotbox the ship.
Hurry, the ship! It's on fire!
That's just fog, you idiot. Oh, wait, I guess it really is on fire. And the crew are all vampires now? Okay, well, I guess this is the part of the video where I say this is still a better love story than Twilight. Oh well, these two have got bigger problems. Oh no! They're being attacked by creatures from the Black Lagoonses, and they brought party
Okay.
favors! Run! Wait,
That's a
let
lot
me
of power
in. I
cubes.
just wanted to
Three
ask
ones.
if you have a moment to talk
fuck
about
you.
Jesus.
Just took my
One
power
thing about
cubes.
this scene, it's kind of hard to tell which screams are the monsters and which are the professors. Hopefully they'll be safe in here.
Now. Wait.
For what? The monsters that are trying to kill you?
At least we're safe here for a while.
transferred all the power cubes I needed.
Yeah, there's a good idea. Just jump in the water. Those fishmen that were after you will never catch you there.
Only 4 of them.
Oh,
I'm not gonna
okay,
see.
maybe they won't. Jeff may be shipwrecked,
Just
but his
elbow.
hair still looks great. And hey, the professor's dead. This movie's looking up. Okay, fine. It's just wishful thinking on my part.
Wake up! You're saved! Oh,
God, even getting rescued scares this guy.
did the ship sink? Boilers exploded.
Wait, the boilers exploded? What, were they filled with nitroglycerin? Never mind that. These two have a long day of walking montages ahead of them.
box.
Here's hoping camping doesn't make this guy shit his pants.
This business of rubbing sticks together must be an invention of Jules Verne.
Well, to be fair, rubbing two sticks together has more to do with Jules Verne than this movie does. Jeff goes looking for food, but all he finds is the smoke monster from
Thank you,
Lost.
Jackie,
I'm
for
guessing that means this movie will
setting
start off
all
kind of
of-
interesting, but ultimately lead to an unsatisfying
Dang it.
conclusion.
I fucking wasted my super block.
Someone else has been saved.
Well, looks like they didn't get saved for very long. Also, I think the professor is getting attacked by a
Oh, for
child's ghost
fuck's
costume
sake.
now. What's this? Looks like someone else really is on the
These are
island.
bots, for fuck's sake, Jackie. These are bots.
Oh, good. Now these two have a wacky animal sidekick. Maybe we'll get a hilarious scene where he bites the professor's face off. Here's my main problem with Artelect. He
Thank
seems
you.
to be trying to channel Peter Cushing's absent-minded Professor Perry from At the Earth's Core. The main difference being that Peter Cushing actually had some funny lines in that movie.
You cannot mesmerize me.
Oh, oh, fuck.
British.
And while Peter Cushing let Doug McClure handle most of the action, he also managed to kick a
Nice.
little ass himself in that movie. As far as Artelec's concerned, I think I can sum up all his lines in the movie like this. My point is, Peter Cushing was a much better wacky professor, which is especially frustrating since they had Peter Cushing on set. Why didn't they get him to play the professor? Hell,
So
just
I
have him
really
play the
only
same
need to
character.
upgrade
I'd watch it.
barley to-
Anyway, we get a montage of the Suck
Oh,
family
that's
Robinson
the
here building a
thing.
jungle fort, and my face-eating joke might not be too far off since the chimp apparently does want to kill
Fine.
Artelect. Attempted murder is funny. Well, it's been a
So
hard day of
this
goofy
one's the
antics.
highest I've
Time to unwind with
got
some
until-
music. Oh yeah, I totally believe he's playing that. Just like how I'm really playing this.
E750. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh good, just what we
The
needed.
editor's name is
Professor Shtick.
E750 for
Your
if
posture is all wrong.
if you don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Well, I
got a
don't
better
know if
idea.
that
How about
is
you try
actually
throwing
what
your
it's
crap
talking
at 'em?
about,
They soon get
but
interrupted by some cannibals because, as we all
it's
know,
a big-ass
all non-white
coincidence.
people in the jungle are
Yeah.
automatically cannibals. Actually, it does
that's
seem like they're
the
preparing to
Scorpius X
sacrifice
from
this
Jurassic
guy.
World
Either that or he really
Interpretation.
doesn't like interpretive dance. This is the 1800s after all, so the
Hey,
only
then
way
why
to
the
deal
fuck
with
did the
natives is with
ball
guns.
go all the way
Okay,
there?
that's a little harsh.
Okay,
I'm sure
no,
these two will
don't
be more
fucking
respectful to the
trick
guy they
shot.
saved.
I understand what he said. Not a word. But I think he wants
Fucking
to be my
idiot.
son. Very well. I'll be your master.
Well, nothing awkward about this situation. Let's move on. There's something bothering me, though. We're over 45
don't
minutes
you
in, and so
fucking-
far there haven't been any monsters on this island.
No, don't fucking do that.
Well, they've already got imitation
Don't
Peter
do a
Cushing
trick
from At
shot.
the Earth's
Good.
Core. Might as well have the monsters from that movie, too. Main difference here is Artelec's the one providing all the obnoxious screeching.
Superman again.
Hey guys, if the monster can still reach you, you should probably try backing up further into the cave. Well, that was a solid 2 minutes of excitement. Now it's time for some more wacky shtick. Because you know, one fort building montage wasn't
finally
enough.
get into a pull-up. Power points and
I didn't add that sound effect.
That
At this
is-
point, I think even the movie's trying to make fun of itself. What the hell? They've got a
no.
boat? Why did we
Oh,
get
damn
two
it.
separate montages of them building a jungle fort if they were just going to try and leave right away? Or is that the
That'll-
mystery the title was talking about?
Now come along.
They know.
We don't want to lose the rhythm.
At least the professor knows it's not the size of the boat, but the motion of the ocean that counts. They get attacked by some live-action Scooby-Doo monsters, but because the island doesn't have any hallways, they'll just have to get chased through some caves. You taking notes, Reefer Madness? This is how to properly do a killer weed movie. Boy, how are they going to get out of this one?
A miracle.
Congratulations,
for fuck's
Professor.
sake,
We're almost an hour in, and so far the
Ems,
chimp has been
do
more useful
something,
than
don't-
you have. They make it safely back to camp, but unfortunately they get attacked by, Tusken Raiders from a Turkish Star Wars movie? Guys, instead of lighting a fire, you could just break the door down and go inside.
Nice.
There's a bunch of you and you have guns. Just saying. Well, since I already compared these guys to something from a
Super.
Turkish movie, might as well keep that going. So the group gets attacked by a bunch of Turkish Mothras, then they escape after going
Okay.
through the set of Turkish The
Shoot!
Descent.
Fuck
There.
secret.
Oh, and they also find the gold from earlier.
It is gold! Gold!
Well, looks like they're safe for now.
72 tokens remaining.
We're all going to die on this island, and it's all your fault. If it weren't for you,
750 to 1k, guys.
Actually, his uncle's the reason you're in this predicament, since he's the one that insisted you go along, which I think we can all agree was a terrible decision. Even when this guy's not in danger, he's
163,
obnoxious.
117,
Another step.
100, 107,
I'm hungry.
Shut up!
160,
And you get out of here too. I've already made enough references to
61.
Turkey in
Yeah,
this video.
yes, thank you.
God, this movie is like if the land that time forgot fucked America's Funniest Home Videos. Does he at least get that turkey?
Fuck you, bag! It was an enormous turkey.
Funny, that's also what most of the reviews of this movie said. Seriously though, who the hell is this?
Can't believe it. It's a lady.
Who are you?
My name is Dominique Blanchard. The ship in which I'm sailing was wrecked over a year ago.
Okay, I got another
Overly
question. Why are
French.
you dubbed? These guys are lucky they found a French chick on this island. That means she totally has a cave boudoir. I'd make a joke about her needing to use the cave
Okay,
bidet,
just
but I think she might actually have
Nothing
one.
is also good, you fucking idiot.
Anything. You only have to ask for it.
And then he asked her to go get him a beer. Well, they've gotten to know each other over dinner. Now let's party. Yeah, I know I used that gag before. I don't care. They get interrupted by the weirdos from earlier, who it turns out are being led by Terrence Stamp. But I guess the producers could only afford Terrence Stamp's voice, since he's clearly played by a different actor here.
Where did you find it?
None of your business.
You don't tell me. Everybody dies.
Hey, don't start with the hot French chick. Torture Artelect first. Hell, if you did
No.
that, Jeff would probably tell you where the gold is just
Don't
as a
fucking-
thank you.
why is it
Also,
always the
Jeff's
Monty
being kind of a
that
dick
take
not
shots?
telling him where the gold is and letting Dominique get tortured, considering the gold's not even technically his.
The gold's in
The
plain
fuck
sight.
is that super?
It'll be easy to find.
Uh,
Go now.
Well, he
Oh,
may be evil, but
thank
at
God
least he's
it's not a
prompt.
fucking
These guys
trick
are lucky
shot.
the ending to 1 million years BC is also being filmed on this island, or else they might not have escaped. There's only one way to deal with Terrence Stamp's goons: a last stand at the fort. Oh, and guys, instead of building a machine gun out of bamboo, you probably should have spent a little more time on the boat.
Quality control.
We should try and sleep.
Well, to be fair, it's a little hard to sleep when it's clearly mid-afternoon.
Which
Doesn't really matter, though, since I guess these guys waited until morning to attack. They may not have a lot of firepower, but thankfully they're able to defeat the bad guys using the power of Zany. Also, I think some of the actors
Okay.
may have actually been hurt in this scene. Jesus, these bad guys make stormtroopers losing to the Ewoks look good. Well, they ran out of bananas. Maybe using something that's actually a weapon will work. Good job, Jeff. You may have just
First
killed
game,
dozens of people,
first
but at least you didn't have to
actual game.
share any gold with them. I'm just kidding. They're fine. And I know this is gonna sound weird, but
Oops.
this is where the movie gets
Okay,
kind of
so-
stupid.
And why the
Your uncle
fuck did
doesn't
you
get
write
here,
right
so
into
we're
that?
finished.
What?
My name is Higby.
Higby?
Yeah, I'm a professional actor hired by your uncle.
What?
What about the monsters?
Your uncle bought them all from Mr. Rosegard, the famous toy maker from San Francisco.
What? That's right, everybody. Turns out everything on the island, including the monsters, was actually set up by Jeff's uncle to teach him a life lesson or some shit. The only thing that is real are Terrence Stamp and his goons who are looking for the gold. Not only is this an incredibly lame twist, but it also has absolutely no effect on the rest of the plot. It's not like they end up using the fake monsters to defeat Terrence Stamp or something. They just retroactively say that they were fake this whole time.
Well
It's
done,
almost like the
Friday.
director saw how goofy they looked and just said, write a line in the script about him being toys or something. Also, was the boat blowing up part of the setup
Three
too?
surprise.
Because if so, his uncle's lucky it blew up after these two jumped off. Otherwise, he would have wasted a lot of money on those monster toys. Oh well, at least Peter Cushing's finally back in this movie.
So Higby has told you. Everything.
Well,
And now you're angry with
24
me?
more,
You tricked me,
and
made a
that's
joke out of
exactly what
everything
I
that's
need.
important to me.
And he almost got you killed.
You didn't know the
And
dangers
I
on this
get
island
coin.
were false. You conducted yourself as though you were really in danger.
Okay, again, if the boat you're on explodes seconds after you jumped off it, I think that qualifies as real danger. Not to mention he just could have drowned before he even got to the damn island. The bad guys come back, and hey, look, they
Oh,
actually
great,
managed to
fucking
get
what
Terrence
is-
Stamp for one more scene.
Now put your hands up before I blow your brains out.
And also kneel before Zod. You know the drill.
I'll be the richest man in America. Too bad none of you will live to see it.
Out of your mind.
I don't know about
Well done,
that, but
Frank.
he is very easily distracted.
Stars.
Oh, and in addition to the monsters, the twist
is
train
fucking
doesn't
cool.
stop there.
I knew I could trust you.
Oh,
Then you're not
there's a
French.
bunny left.
No, I'm not French.
I did
And
not
forget
realize that.
Jules Verne, this movie should be called M. Night Shyamalan's Monster Island. At
What
this
the
point, I
fuck
wouldn't be
was that?
surprised if a Land Rover drove by.
No,
Well,
no,
there's only
don't
one
take
thing
it.
that can save them now,
Oh
fireworks? Oh, and more shtick from the professor. Great, now he's going cross-eyed.
everyone.
Another thing
Oh,
Peter
thank
Cushing
you.
did much better in At the Earth's
You know
Core.
that-
Meanwhile, it looks like Terrence Stamp
Thomas
is desperately trying to escape
753.
this movie. In a second, where the
Thomas
hell is he coming
753
back?
has to be a fucking bot. I've come across him on a main before.
Yeah, sure. Why the
I'll
hell
take
not?
this one.
Singapore was an explosive expert in San Francisco. It was he who simulated the explosion of the dream.
Okay, again, if you actually blew up the ship, that's not a simulation, that's a real explosion. I really don't think you understand how dangerous this all was.
I made big explosions.
I would say this guy's the Jar Jar of the movie, but who am I kidding? It's still Art Elect.
Nothing
Oh
or
shit, that's
nobody
silly, I
will
did
ever
not know that.
frighten me again.
I just blocked him. Well done. You're not a fucking idiot. So,
So that's Mystery on Monster Island. And Danny, you were
well,
lucky you bribed me with this
I
poster.
guess
The movie's
that
obviously
is
going for an
acceptable
old-fashioned
this time.
adventure feel, similar to the Doug McClure movies, although in some places it's a little too old-fashioned. The combination
First, a new YouTube video to watch. Hmm. 500 credits, 320 is definitely enough. 694 I need.
Groen is
Oh,
meer dan
fuck off.
en dat voelt goed.
I don't care. I'm pretty
Well,
sure
everybody,
it's
it's my 50th
politics.
episode. What better way to
Give a
celebrate than
fuck
by
about the
commemorating something
politics.
far more important? 60 years of Godzilla. Better way to celebrate. Well, everybody, it's my 50th episode. What better way to celebrate than by commemorating something far more important? 60 years of Godzilla. Yes, it was all the way back in 1954 that everybody's favorite radioactive monster first appeared on movie screens. And since then, he's gone on to appear in 30 movies, becoming a worldwide pop culture icon on par with characters like James Bond or Superman. Godzilla's been everything from an allegory for nuclear weapons to a superhero defending mankind and everything in between. And even when the critics haven't liked him, he's had a loyal base of fans from all across the world. In fact, if anything, Godzilla seems to be more popular than ever, since 2014 gave us not only a successful American adaptation of the character, but also the announcement that there'll be another Japanese installment too. Now, you may have already seen me poke fun at a few movies in the series, but I'm not the type of person to shit on a guy on his birthday. So instead, to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Godzilla, I'm going to list off my own personal top 10 Godzilla movies.
My favorite Godzilla movie is 2019's King of the Monsters. I
Number
really
10.
like that one.
Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. This is an important entry in the series for a few reasons. One, it was the first appearance of King Ghidorah, a
Where the
three-headed
fuck was
flying
my
space dragon
assistant?
that would end up becoming Godzilla's
And why
most
the fuck are
popular
you using
enemy and go on to
8-bit?
appear in several other films.
It's
Two, this
fucking
movie
idiotic.
almost single-handedly invented the kaiju tag team battle. Before this, you just had monsters fighting each other one-on-one. But now we have three of Japan's most famous monsters teaming up to take on Ghidorah, something that would get taken to an extreme and destroy all monsters. The plot involves a princess whose mind is being controlled by Martians. She tries to warn everyone about Ghidorah, claiming that he's responsible for destroying Martian civilization and that he'll do the same to Earth. But this is complicated by the fact that assassins are constantly trying to kill her.
And what if she is the princess? If
Nice.
so, you will kill her.
You know, you don't often see a hired killer wearing an outfit like that. Meanwhile, Godzilla and Rodan show up and spend most of the first part of the movie fighting each
And I
other.
unlocked
Both
clubs
monsters had
and
been bad guys
automatically
up to this point, so this was a good way to get some monster action in before the final
I know
battle.
what club
Eventually,
things are.
Mothra gets brought in to play mediator and
Club
convince
found,
Godzilla and Rodan to fight
okay.
Ghidorah, but all they want to do is kick the crap out of each other. This was when the series was becoming more lighthearted, and although it's
Shit,
not
it's
as
strange.
goofy as
Hell,
some of
now
the
I'm
later
leaving
entries,
this one.
there's still lots of humorous touches, like when the
Strange.
monsters all sit down for a little chit-chat and the Mothra twins translate.
Oh, Godzilla, what terrible language!
Eventually, the monsters put aside their differences and team up to take on Ghidorah. This film marked a turning point in the series where Godzilla would no longer be the villain and started being the hero, something that would continue for the rest of the original series. Overall, this is probably the best mid-period film of the original Godzilla series. It's more colorful than the early entries without being as silly as the later ones. And whereas Destroy All Monsters had so many monsters in it that a lot of them just ended up being brief cameos, here each one gets enough time to shine. With four of Japan's most popular monsters in one movie, how can you go wrong?
I'm gonna fucking rush to the
Number
middle.
9. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. In the late 60s and continuing through the 70s, the Godzilla series got progressively goofier and sillier and were geared more and more towards children.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles, though.
This movie definitely fits in with that campy Saturday matinee style, but is easily my favorite of the bunch. The movie begins with a woman having a vision that a giant monster is going to destroy Tokyo, which considering she's in a Godzilla movie isn't really much of a prediction.
A monster will set fire to the city!
She might as well have just said the sun was gonna rise tomorrow. Godzilla shows up and starts causing trouble, which is weird since at this point in the series he's supposed to be a good guy. He even breaks Anguillus's jaw in one scene. Damn! Anguillus manages to rip away some of Godzilla's flesh, revealing metal underneath and cluing the audience in that this isn't actually Godzilla. Pretty soon the real Godzilla shows up and the imposter is revealed to be a robotic double of Godzilla.
You could call it a Mechagodzilla.
You could, but in America they'll try calling him the Cosmic Monster and the Bionic Monster for some
What?
stupid reason. Mechagodzilla was created and is being controlled by aliens who look like rejects from a Planet of the Apes movie. Towards the end, another monster is introduced called King Caesar, a weird ancient god/poodle monster. He even gets his own theme song. No, seriously, King Caesar doesn't even wake up until somebody sings to him. This goes on for 3 minutes. It's like the movie just turned into a musical all of a sudden. King Caesar finally gets his ass up and battles Mechagodzilla, only to get the crap kicked out of him. Unfortunately, Godzilla comes along to help him out. They really pull out all the stops for the final battle here. Mechagodzilla uses finger missiles, toe missiles, knee cannons, chest lightning, rainbow death rays, rocket boots, force fields. It's like they tried to include every insane power they could think of. A strange thing about this movie is that even though it's one of the more kid-friendly entries, there's a lot of blood in it. Seriously, every time you see it, it's just gushing all over the place. It's like something out of Kill Bill. Even Godzilla bleeds in this movie. One of my favorite parts is when Godzilla suddenly turns himself into a giant magnet to defeat Mechagodzilla. Supposedly it's because Godzilla was struck by lightning earlier, but mostly it just comes out of nowhere. Like I said earlier, this movie is best appreciated if you don't mind a thick layer of cheese. The whole aliens controlling a monster to take over the Earth plotline was pretty standard at this point in the series.
Get your ass over here. I have 10 fucking power cubes.
This material.
Wee, boom, I am killing you.
Space
And
titanium. Space titanium? You mean it's from outer space?
Overall, though, this one is much more entertaining than the previous few movies in the series.
No, you
Mechagodzilla would
motherfucker.
end up becoming one of Godzilla's major enemies and go on to appear in several more movies, but this one's still my favorite. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. It's campy, it's silly, but it's also a lot of fun. 8. Godzilla vs. Biollante. Believe it or
Okay.
not, this movie was actually the result of a contest Toho had where members of the public could send in script ideas for a new Godzilla film. One of the other scripts to be sent in would eventually become Gunhead. Yeah, I'm glad that one didn't win. This is one of the most underrated Godzilla movies, and it usually gets overlooked by fans, but it's actually one of the most ambitious and unusual entries in the series, and has a more thoughtful and detailed plot than your average Godzilla film. Scientists find some of Godzilla's cells and combine them with plant DNA in the hopes of making a super resilient plant that can
Okay,
grow in the
next.
desert. However, all it does is
1,
create a
2,
creature known
3.
as Biollante, plant monster with killer tentacles that at first looks like a rose and then a combination between a crocodile and the plant from Little Shop of Horrors. What's more, the scientist responsible for creating Biollante is convinced that the soul of his murdered daughter is inside the monster too. Yeah, I guess I can see
And
the
there goes my
resemblance.
screen
Meanwhile,
died again.
Godzilla returns to wreak
Don't
havoc
know
on
if you
Japan,
guys
and the two
actually
monsters
see it
end up
in
on a
video.
collision course. One of this movie's biggest strengths is that the human part of the story has some more weight this time, and there are even some light philosophical touches about the ethics of genetic engineering and abuse of technology. Biollante may not be as well known as some other Godzilla foes like King Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla, but she's got one of the most creative and impressive designs of any Godzilla monster. She even manages to make Godzilla look small in some scenes. People looking for a bunch of balls-to-the-wall kaiju action may be a little disappointed here. Due
I'm
to the
getting
nature of
forgotten
Biollante's
there.
design, she's not as mobile as some of Godzilla's other
Okay.
foes, and there aren't any knockdown, drag-out fights like in other movies. Still, there's enough going on plot-wise to keep
Get your
you interested.
shit
This may
over
be one of
here.
the lesser-known movies in the series, but I think this is actually a pretty good starting place for newcomers since it treats the material seriously while still having the sense of fun that a Godzilla movie's supposed to have. And for people who are already hardcore G fans, I say give Godzilla vs. Biollante another look. Number 7. Godzilla vs. Destroyer, or Destroya if you want to be a purist about
Destroya.
it. This was the final film
That's
of
how
the
you
second
spell it,
series
so
of
that's how I
Godzilla
freaking
movies,
pronounce
known
it.
as the Heisei series, and the filmmakers decided to go out with a bang. Literally. In the opening scene, Godzilla attacks Hong Kong and looks like he's burning up from the inside. Turns out the radiation in Godzilla's body has gone haywire and he's now melting down like a nuclear reactor. If he melts down fully, it'll create an explosion that could destroy the entire world. At the time of this movie's release in 1995, a big deal was made out of the fact that Godzilla dies at the end. Of course, he died in the first movie, but this time it was supposedly going to be permanent. I can even remember hearing about this on the news when I was a kid, years before the movie was ever available in North America. Of course, like any popular character, Godzilla didn't stay dead for very long. Although this is his only appearance so far, Destroya is one of the most memorable opponents ever in a Godzilla movie.
One of
It
his
starts out as
strongest.
these tiny little parasites that were created by the Oxygen Destroyer, the weapon that killed the first Godzilla. And throughout the movie, it evolves into a variety of other forms, including these weird alien crab creatures. During these scenes, the movie feels closer to something like Aliens than a Godzilla movie. The creatures mutate into other forms, including a flying one, eventually coming together into one monster that looks like a Godzilla-fied version of the devil. Godzilla's son also appears in this movie, and hey, what do you know? He actually looks like his father this time and doesn't squeal like a donkey. That's a plus. Believe it or not, Godzilla Jr. does quite a bit of the fighting against Destroya, and at the end, it's actually the army that's responsible for beating him. Weird. Godzilla finally melts down at the end, but the army uses a freeze ray to prevent the explosion, and all of Godzilla's energy is transferred into his son, hinting at a further movie series that was never followed up on. It's a little disappointing that Godzilla isn't the one responsible for dealing the final blow to Destroya. Considering this was supposed to be the character's send-off, I think Godzilla sacrificing himself in order to truly defeat Destroya would have made for a better ending. But despite that minor complaint, this is still a very entertaining movie and a good end to the second series of films. Number 6. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. It's weird to think that even though Ghidorah is Godzilla's #1 enemy, it took decades for there to actually be a movie called Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. But in 1991, we finally got one. and it's one of the best and most clever movies of the series. It begins with a UFO landing in Japan, which makes it look like the plot is going to be about evil aliens again. Turns out the ship is actually piloted by humans from the far future. They tell everyone that they can travel back in time to World War II and transport the dinosaur that becomes Godzilla off the island it's on before the nuclear explosion that mutates it into Godzilla, effectively preventing Godzilla from ever being created. However, they replace the dinosaur with 3 cute, fuzzy little creatures called Dorats who end up fusing together and mutating into King Ghidorah. Yep, turns out the people from the future are evil, and since Godzilla's not around to stop them anymore, they use Ghidorah to subjugate Japan. However, a new Godzilla gets created thanks to a nuclear submarine, and so Godzilla's back, bigger and meaner than ever. I love how this movie subverts the usual Godzilla movie formula. They bring Godzilla back to defeat Ghidorah, which he does, even blowing one of his heads off. But after Ghidorah is defeated, then Godzilla starts causing trouble. So he goes from being the bad guy at the beginning to being the hero, then back to being the bad guy again in one movie.
Our saviors come back to protect us.
Nope, sorry, buddy. One thing I'm not a big fan of is Ghidorah's new origin. Before this, he was a planet-destroying dragon from outer space. I know that's vague, but I never needed specifics about exactly what he is or where he came from. And I think that's a lot more badass than the explanation they give here. I'm sorry, but these things are way too cute to end up becoming Godzilla's nemesis. But hey, they're only in the movie for a few minutes, so I can forgive that. This movie also has some of the best action sequences in the entire series. I mean, where else are you going to see Godzilla blow one of Ghidorah's heads off? Especially badass is when they bring Ghidorah back as Mecha King Ghidorah, giving him various mechanical parts and new weapons. This has one of the most unique and memorable plot lines of any Godzilla movie, and remains a fan favorite. It may have taken years for us to get Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but it was worth the wait. Number 5. Godzilla 1985. Now here's where I start to break with a lot of G fans in my top 10. Mainstream critics hated this movie when it came out, which is no surprise, but even Godzilla fans tend to dislike this movie. I've already talked about how the Godzilla series gradually became geared towards children, and Godzilla changed from being a scary, destructive monster to a friendly superhero type character. And after Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975, the series went on hiatus for almost a decade. Then in 1984, Toho decided to reboot the series and bring Godzilla back to its roots, making a direct sequel to the first film that ignored all other movies in the series. This movie is sometimes known as The Return of Godzilla, but in Japan it was released as simply Godzilla. After years of plots involving alien invaders and monster tag teams, the filmmakers decided to keep things simple. 30 years after his original rampage, Godzilla returns to menace Tokyo once again. Also, given that it was now the 80s, there's also some Cold War drama involving a Soviet nuclear missile that gets launched in Tokyo, but that's just a secondary plot line. The first thing you'll notice is that compared to the previous movies in the series, the production values are much higher. Although it uses a lot of the same techniques, the suit, models, and animatronics all look much better than they did before, even if they're still not entirely convincing today. In 1985, the movie was re-edited and released in America by none other than B-movie kingpin Roger Corman, and it featured new scenes with Raymond Burr's character Steve Martin from the first Godzilla. Although because Steve Martin the actor was popular at this time, they just call him Mr. Martin. Looking at the American version, I can kind of see where some of the fan hatred comes from. There's a lot of awkward product placement for Dr. Pepper, and it's pretty obvious that the producers of the American scenes didn't take the movie seriously.
God. That's quite an urban renewal program they got going over there.
As you say,
Despite that, I think the rest of the movie works pretty well. This was an attempt to make Godzilla scary again and capture the menacing tone of the first film, and in that regard, I think it succeeds. I just love how dark this movie looks and feels. Most of it takes place at night, and the scenes in the daytime have a really gray, somber look to them. From the very beginning when Godzilla first appears, there's an almost apocalyptic feel to some scenes in this movie, and it's easily the darkest film in the series since the first one. Another fan complaint is that Godzilla doesn't fight another monster in the film, but he does battle with a weapon called the Super X, a flying machine specially designed to kill him, and the scenes where it's fighting Godzilla are easily the highlight of the movie. It's worth noting that as of 2014, this movie still hasn't gotten an official DVD or Blu-ray release in North America. Here's hoping they fix that soon so G fans can give this movie another chance.
Just left Tokyo in August. Welcome, Godzilla.
Number 4. Godzilla 2014. Yep, that's right. I'm actually putting an American Godzilla movie on this list. I know,
Of course.
blasphemy. After a disappointing attempt at the character in 1998, Hollywood decided to try again in 2014, and this time the results are a lot better. The plot is fairly straightforward. Two giant prehistoric creatures known as Mutos awaken after being
I
dormant
always
for billions
pronounce
of years,
them
and the army has to
Mutos.
figure out a way to stop them before they reproduce and potentially annihilate mankind.
Mhm,
Meanwhile,
with 5
Godzilla,
outfits.
another prehistoric monster that first appeared in the 1950s, reemerges as well. Apparently it's to stop the
Oh,
Mutos, but no
cute.
one's quite sure whether he's friend or foe. It all culminates in a good old-fashioned kaiju smackdown with San Francisco standing in for Tokyo. Whereas the
Oh, okay.
1998 version is almost
Oh, nu al.
universally hated by Godzilla
Oh,
fans.
shit.
The reaction to this
Ja, ik ga mijn spelke eerst even afmaken. Oké. Dat is de... Oh, 16. 16 pounds. I was going to it. So, I'm... Yeah. Gonna pause the video. Plug my tablet in. And see... If it... that it doesn't... Well... disconnect and shit like that. If so, well, and then you know that the video that I'll be doing that in another video, I guess, in maybe like tiny short one.
This one's
Yep,
been
I'm
more
back.
divisive. A big
It
sticking
took
point
a
for
while.
fans seems to be that Godzilla doesn't get a whole lot
So,
of screen time here.
2
but
more
honestly,
battles.
This didn't bother me that much. I don't mind a slow reveal as long
Well,
as
the
there's
first
effective
place and the
build-up,
second
and I think
place.
this movie accomplishes that. The first time Godzilla appears, as well as the first time he uses his radioactive beam, are both great payoffs and had people cheering in the theater. More importantly, this version actually seems to get how Godzilla and his opponents should be portrayed. You really get a sense of just how big and powerful these creatures are, and that no matter what they do, the military is basically powerless against them. The only things that can stop them are each other, and in a Godzilla movie, that's exactly how it should be. This movie knows that Godzilla is supposed to be an unstoppable engine of destruction, not some anorexic iguana that runs away from the military and gets killed by a couple missiles at the end. One downside is that with the exception of Bryan Cranston, most of the characters are a bit on the bland side. Although to be honest, you could say that about a lot of the Japanese Godzilla movies, and none of the characters are obnoxious or stupid like in some other big American blockbusters. Despite its flaws, this movie succeeds in putting Godzilla in a big American blockbuster while still respecting the character. Many fans choose to call the monster in the 1998 version Zilla, saying that that movie took the god out of the character. But for the 2014 version, they remember to put it back in.
My hands are a bit sticky.
Number 3. Godzilla vs. Mothra. Or Mothra vs. Godzilla if you want to use the newer title. Hell, if you want the original American title, it's Godzilla vs. The Thing. The posters even made it look like Godzilla was supposed to fight some sort of octopus monster. Why the hell did old movie posters lie to people so much? This one is a real fan favorite and is usually considered one of the best in the entire series, and with good reason. Mothra had already appeared in her own movie in 1961, but this was the character's first appearance in a Godzilla film, and she would go on to become one of the most popular of all Japanese monsters, even getting her own film series in the 90s. Without getting into too much detail, Mothra is a giant insect god who has 2 twin fairies who are able to summon her by singing a song. Everybody got that? Good. The movie begins when a giant egg washes on shore during a hurricane, and a corrupt businessman with a Hitler mustache decides to exploit it for profit. Turns out the egg belongs to Mothra, and the twin fairies show up and tell the promoter to release the egg or else it'll make Mothra angry. But he just decides to kidnap the fairies and profit off them too. Pretty soon Godzilla shows up, making one of his weirdest entrances ever, rising up from the ground. It makes absolutely no sense, but it's awesome. The army tries everything to stop Godzilla, but it doesn't do any good. They try missiles, tanks, electricity. At one point, they even light his head on fire, but he just keeps coming. Mothra comes in before Godzilla's able to destroy her egg, and she actually puts up a pretty good fight against Godzilla. But of course you know what happens when a moth meets a flame, don't you? Yeah. But just as Mothra dies, her egg hatches and two caterpillar Mothras take on Godzilla and avenge their mother. This is one of the most colorful and
All the
entertaining
cubes are
entries in the
taken.
entire series and is highly recommended.
Nothing here.
Number 2.
7 cube
GMK,
body.
or if you want the full title, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. Think you got enough words in there, fellas? After Godzilla vs. Destroya, Toho decided to resurrect the series again, starting with Godzilla 2000 and ending with Godzilla Final Wars. This group of films is commonly known as the Millennium series. All the films in this series are pretty
First
good and worth
epic
checking
unlocked.
out, but this one is my favorite. In fact, it's one of the most unique and original entries in the entire series. Just
just
like
like
Godzilla
Yellow.
1985, this one is a direct
Gold.
sequel to the first Godzilla that ignores all the other movies,
After
although they do
this,
include a subtle dig at the
It's got Super,
1998
Epic
Godzilla.
Dynamite, Epic, Rare, Super Rare, eventually Mythic.
Godzilla's a
After
bad guy
another
again in this
few.
movie, and he's given one of his most distinctive designs ever with solid white eyes. They also change Godzilla's origin and give him more of a mystical quality in this
okay.
movie. Before, Godzilla was a dinosaur mutated by atomic radiation,
Oh,
but here
goodbye.
it's implied